And I'm sure we are all going to have a wonderful evening and an enlightening one as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, our guest of honor is here, and he'll be joining us in a minute. Okay. Kindly remain upstanding for national anthem, please. Thank you. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, the proceedings this evening will start with a song by children of Jirani Cultural Organization. They are from Mathari Valley. Please give them a big hand. Welcome them. These children have a special message for us, a message of non-violence. Please listen to them. Wonderful children of Jirani Cultural Organization. Give them a big hand. Even the children have a message for us. I hope we understand. The next item is by Nairobi Girls Choir. Again, they come with a wonderful message for us. Let us appreciate their efforts. Nairobi Girls Choir, please. Let peace prevail. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, what a wonderful message. I hope you liked it. I want to thank Minister of Culture, especially George Lesias and Moses, for helping me to organize this function, these two items. And you must understand, they have done dozens of trials to come to this level, so give them a big hand. It is my pleasure to call upon the chairman of Asian Foundation, Mr. Ribello, to come and welcome give you a welcome speech. and to welcome our first speaker this evening, Mr. Ribello.
Is it on? Ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, judges, my former boss, Charles Jonjo, representatives of the various ministries and embassies in Kenya, welcome all. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this commemoration of the UN Day of Nonviolence by the Asian Foundation, in memory of Mahatma Gandhi, a very great and compassionate human being, the father of the practice of nonviolence. The Mahatma often said, "There are many causes that I am prepared to die for, but there is no cause that I am prepared to kill for." Ladies and gentlemen, we are very fortunate to have with us today the very venerable Professor Samdhong Rinpoche, who has lived by this Gandhian standard throughout his life. He has taken time from a very busy schedule to be here with us, and we thank him for making the effort to come and be with us. He will be introduced to you later on by my good and learned friend, Feroz Naoroji. Feroz Naoroji, Mr. Feroz Naoroji, we like to call him Philly, needs no introduction. He is a great lawyer, accomplished musician, but he is also a great freedom fighter. He treaded the streets of Nairobi in the fight for the second liberation, always giving wise counsel and leadership in every aspect. I used to see him on television on all those long marches to Kamakunji and feel a great deal of admiration for him. Feroz Naoroji will speak first, and he will introduce our speaker. Welcome, Feroz.
Thank you, Chairman, distinguished guest, officers of the Asian Foundation, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I speak about Gandhi and East Africa and nonviolence in East Africa. The Gandhian way has two components. One is the aim of what Gandhians would do and should do, and the second is the method by which they would do the work that they seek to do. And Gandhians are tested by a combination of these. We cannot use his method for bad aims. An unjust aim by nonviolent means is not satyagraha. It is possible to have injustice even by nonviolent means. It would not qualify to be Gandhian nonviolence. And so we cannot divorce the two. Satyagraha is an aim of truth by a means of truth. So would we be Gandhians when we assure ourselves, as we constantly do, that we are against violence as a means? It would only be half of his example. The other half is, what is the aim for which you would support nonviolence as the means. Nonviolence is a method. The purpose and aim of Gandhian nonviolence is the correction of injustice. Gandhi's whole life was against injustice, whether it was political injustice, economic injustice, or social injustice. We know his efforts at against political injustice and for political justice. The struggles in South Africa and India were for freedom, Azad, Swaraj, independence, for self-determination. That is political justice, for political equality and non-discrimination, what he called very early on national self-respect. Passes discriminatory laws, special taxes, special marriage laws. These were the institutions that he fought against in South Africa before he moved to a theater of operations in India, which was not restricted to the subcontinent, but became a theater of operations throughout the world. Economic justice was equally close to Gandhi's heart. Self-sufficiency, spinning, khadi. He was against indentured labor, such as prevailed in Kenya. Some of us are descendants of people who signed indentures. And these were things which were replicated in Fiji, South Africa, Mauritius, the West Indies, and so on. And he fought against those. And he was against social injustice and for social justice, against religious barriers, against caste barriers. But most of all, in this fight against social injustice was his fight against poverty, because Gandhi reminded us that poverty is the greatest violence. We cannot, as we are doing today, glorify and support Gandhi's method of nonviolence, the day of nonviolence, without also glorifying and supporting his aims. We cannot glorify Gandhi for the method, but choose to quietly ignore his aims, because that is non-action. And nonviolence is not non-action. Rather, it is aggressive action, but without violent means, towards the purposes of truth and justice. In fact, non-action helps untruth and injustice. Inaction is within each of us. It's a human dilemma we all face. And we gain help, for example, from the Bhagavad Gita and the great dialogue between Arjuna, who was reluctant to fight against family and teachers, and Lord Krishna on the other hand. And its teaching is clear. There can be no inaction against injustice. Thus, nonviolence is not non-action. And we, in the private sector, cannot read the newspapers, shake our heads, and wait for politicians or friends from overseas to effect correctives and to bring about change. There is much charity that the private sector does, but charity is not change. Charity does not change injustice, and often, unintentionally, it is the entrenchment of injustice. Many years ago, Archbishop Helder Camara of Brazil, the priest of the poor, showed the difference between charity and change well when he famously said, and I quote, "When I give food to the poor, they call me a saint. When I ask why the poor have no food, they call me a communist." Who then should make the change? Should we wait for politicians to bring about change? Should we wait for lawyers to bring about change, but not businessmen? There are great changes taking place in Kenya. Yet, in the second liberation, and in the great constitutional reform process in Kenya, merchants were missing. And yet, the second liberation and Kenya's new constitution are one of the greater achievements of nonviolence as a political method. We do not have to wait for the international, so-called international press to recognize a great nonviolent movement when it chooses to do so. Right here, in this city, in this country, there has been a great nonviolent revolution right in front of our eyes, and it was nonviolent. You saw Davinder Lamba beaten in hospital. You saw Timothy Joya beaten and taken to hospital. And literally thousands of Kenyans were beaten, jailed, and detained to achieve justice. That is a nonviolent revolution that took place here, within us. Were merchants missing there because they thought they had no part to play in change? May I offer you, in answer, some East African history, some African history. First of all, we must remember that Gandhi came out to be with merchants. There were no lawyers there, no politicians within the community he came out to. There were merchants, and he led merchants and plantation workers into Satyagraha. And it was merchants who marched in those satyagrahas, who organized every single aspect of it, and who went to prison for it. And social justice was a concern and a cause for action by merchants in Durban and later in Johannesburg. And we, in the private sector here, should not lose that concern, and more important, should not lose that impetus to action. The second is a second example which relates to the part that merchants have played in East Africa in relation to Gandhi. After Gandhi's death in 1948 January, after his cremation at Rajghat, New Delhi, a part of the ashes, the major portion of which were cast to the river in India, part of these ashes were brought to South Africa. And they were also brought to East Africa. In East Africa, they were taken to Uganda, and there they were immersed in the river Nile. And Mr. J.D. Bairamji, who was then the Assistant Secretary of the East African Indian Congress, in speaking later remembered, he said it was Mr. Sorabji Rustamji, and who had personally worked. He was the son of the Parsi Rustamji, who is mentioned in the autobiography and in Satyagraha in South Africa, both by Gandhi. And it was Sorabji who had personally worked with Gandhi, who specially traveled to India after the assassination to obtain a part of the ashes to carry back to South Africa. And when Rustamji's ship stopped at Mombasa on the way back, the part of these ashes were taken to Mombasa, and the urn was then brought to Nairobi and placed in the Desai Memorial Hall for one day, where again the public, including the then governor, paid their respects. Upon the return of the urn to Mombasa, the East African Indian Congress requested Mr. Rustamji to allow part of the ashes to be left behind in East Africa so they could be immersed at the source of the Nile. Mr. Rustamji agreed to this, and accordingly some of the ashes were then put in a new urn and left behind, while Mr. Rustamji proceeded to South Africa with the remainder. There, those ashes were immersed at the confluence of the Atlantic Ocean and the Indian Ocean outside Cape Town off the Cape of Good Hope. The new urn left in Kenya, containing the ashes now left behind in Mombasa, was then taken to Nairobi, and from there, the urn and the ashes were taken by road to Uganda. The urn was in the car of Mr. Shivabai G. Amin, S.G. Amin, then President of the Congress. With him in that car were Mrs. Amin, Mr. and Mrs. P.D. Master, whose son, S.P., died 2 months ago in Mombasa, and Mr. J.D. Beramji, then also the President of the Social Service League. In the second car were Mr. Prithwinath Shankardas, Dr. Arya, Mr. Shapur Beramji, and a photographer. When the